Alright, good day, and welcome to the beardless arc. So, for the last, fortnight or so, I have had the worst beard ever. It's gone now. I promise, I'm back to normal, guys. And so is for revision, because we actually have an exam, assessment, whatever it is, tomorrow. So, I've left all of this stuff on the board, because I forgot to wipe it off. But what we're doing today is I very quickly want to go over co-transport because I always forget how easy co-transport is. I always overthink it, but it's really easy. So we'll quickly go over co-transport and then we'll look at taxes, kinesis, and tropisms. And maybe a bit of a reflex arc too. So, co-transport is the idea that we have the, I guess it's better if we draw it like this. We have the bloodstream. We have the cells lining the ileum, the epithelial cells. And we have the lumen of the intestine. So, the way this process works, it's all about playing with different concentration gradients. To begin with, we have sodium ions in the epithelial cells. And these are pumped out via active transport through the sodium-potassium pump. So right away, active transport. So now there's a lot of sodium ions out here. Not too many in here. So we've established a concentration gradient. There is a higher concentration outside of the cell than there is in the cell, which means that sodium ions are going to diffuse via facilitated diffusion into the cell. Because remember, they're ions, they have to diffuse via a channel protein. However, in order for this channel protein to work, it requires glucose. So glucose is also brought in with sodium ions. So now, there is a higher concentration of glucose inside the cell than out, so the glucose will diffuse via facilitated diffusion out of the cell and into the bloodstream. And that is it. That is the process of co-transport, summarized insanely quickly. But that is all you need to put. The change in concentration gradient allows for the ions to diffuse in, diffuse out, etc. That's literally all it is, a change in concentration gradient. So, let's start off with taxis, kinesis, and tropisms then. So, let's have a look at my book. Which hopefully has stuff in it. Okay. So, literally two very easy definitions. Taxis is directional movement towards or against a stimulus. If it's towards, it's positive. If it's against, it's negative. So that is, right there, definition number one. Definition number two, for kinesis, it's random non-directional movement. Random non-directional movements in response to a stimuli. And this is usually a gradient. So it moves along the gradient if it's positive. So there you go. That is literally the two definitions for the subject. Taxis is directional stimuli, either towards or, directional movement. It's directional movement towards or against the stimulus. Kinesis is random non-directional movement against or towards a gradient. So kinesis is a response where the organism does not move away or towards a stimulus. So it's random, it's non-directional. It changes its speed and rate at which it... So literally, kinesis would be like this. Like, it's just randomly... The organism is just randomly moving around. Taxis would be more like direct. So if this is the stimulus compared to this, where, you know, it's random. There's no pattern to it. So for example, a woodlouse would move from the dry to the damp. So in other words, its optimal conditions are damp. So if it's in a dry place, it's going to just do some positive kinesis to try and get back towards the damp conditions. And it's determined by the direction of the stimulus. So earthworms will move away from the light, bacteria move towards areas of glucose. So, yeah, we got that. So, that is taxis and kinesis. Taxis is directional, just like how... But good way I remember it is... Taxes is literally spelt like taxes, as in being taxed. And taxes are very upfront and direct. Directional. Kinesis, I just think kinetic energy, like random, you know. So that's how I remember it. Okay. Plant growth factors. Cool. So, there are some pretty important tropisms. Phototropism is a response to light, think photosynthesis. Hydrotropism is a response to water. Geo or gravitropism is a response towards gravity. It's positive for phototropism. So that means that the plant is going to grow towards the light. Obviously, why would it grow towards the light? Because it requires light for photosynthesis, for light-dependent reaction. And without that light-dependent reaction, then no glucose can be produced. So it requires... It's more optimal for it to point towards the light. It is negative geotropism, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's negative geotropism because the roots go towards gravity. No, hold on, I'm really sorry. Okay, it is positive geotropism because they're going towards gravity. But if we're talking about phototropism, then it's negative. So the roots undergo positive geotropism, the shoots go positive phototropism. Okay. So, the name of the hormone is called IAA. Don't really know what that means. I don't think we need to know. But that's the hormone which encourages plant growth, okay? So, the main idea is that IAA is all about cells elongating. Cool. We know that. Cells elongate, which obviously we'll talk about just in a sec. And it's only produced in meristem areas. Meristem areas are just areas or when new cell growth can occur. They're the only areas of a plant cell that can undergo mitosis, and that's because it's the roots, the tips of the roots or shoots. Got it, okay. So, IAA is a hormone which promotes cell elongation. It's only produced in the meristem areas. We got that. So, yeah, a growth in response to stimulus is called tropism. Plant growth hormones are called auxins. So auxin moves to the shaded area when light is directional, cells become top heavy. Yeah, we got this. We don't even really need to do an example, but I will just because. Just because I'm that sweet. Okay. Quite literally, it would be like, this is how a plant shoots to begin with. Imagine that this is the sun. So what's going to happen is that eventually it's going to point towards the sun. And why would it do that? Well, because we have our auxins making it top heavy, because they will grow against the sun. So a better example would be this. If the light is here, this is where the IAA would move towards. That's where the IAA would move towards. They would move towards the other side where the sun isn't present, because then this side is going to grow, which causes it to, become top heavy, move down. So there is also obviously gravitropism, which is literally just this idea that it's produced in the meristome areas of a root. We know it gathers in the shaded area. Oh, okay, hold on. There is one thing we need to know for geotropism. IAA in geotropism inhibits cell elongation, which encourages it to become top heavy. Areas closer to light. Okay, right, so this one makes sense, but you just have to think about it a little bit logically. Imagine this is the tip of a root. The sun is here, and it's shining directly down. We are going to have our auxins here, our IAA there. And what that is going to do is this is now inhibited. If we imagine this whole zone is now inhibited, it cannot elongate, it cannot grow. This can. So it's going to try and grow, and because it grows, it becomes heavier, which forces it to move down. That's basically what you need to know. So it increases the ability to absorb water and minerals because it's growing downwards. It's growing against light by trying to grow towards it. And I'm pretty sure that that is it. I mean, we could do the structure of a neuron, but I think I'm pretty confident with that. Reflex arc is just SRS, CMER. It's an involuntary movement. Only uses 2 synapses, 3 neurons. Stimulus detected by receptors, which send an impulse through the sensory neuron. So, I don't think we need to do much else here. I think the only thing we would need to do is maybe look at some exam questions, which I will probably end up doing tonight on my own, because there are a lot of tricky exam questions for this. A lot of questions on like, oh, this experiment here, they put foil on a plant and it didn't grow. You really just need to think logically about it, which is difficult to do, because if there's one thing that AQA biology does not do, it does not encourage you to think logically. It makes you think like a mark scheme. So when you are asked something which requires logic, you overthink it and get it wrong, but which happens all the time. But I think that's it for the topic. So let's just quickly recap. Taxis is directional movement towards or against a stimuli. Kinesis is random, non-directional movement towards or against a gradient. Tropisms is just a plant growth towards a stimuli or against a stimuli. Geotropism relies on IAA, the hormone which encourages plant growth, to inhibit plant growth. in order so that it can become top heavy and move down. Meanwhile, IAA in the shoot for positive phototropism will move towards the light because it becomes top heavy on the back. So yeah, there you go.